This is Progress Culture.
You get, these time periods that are kind of defined based on the fossils you get,
Right.
And you get like a couple million years where you primarily are finding like the jawbones of bony fish. And then you start to see fossilized plant corals showing up and whatnot. And then when you have a period where there's just like a ton of growth and everything's evolving because the world has been changing, like the climate changed, the snow's gone, things can go on land, algae's happening, whatever, like some big thing happens. They call it an explosion, like the Cambrian explosion.
Right.
Because you got this whole time of a period, millions of years, where you get the same thing, and then you get like a couple 100,000 years where it's just like tons of stuff,
All kinds of things happening.
yep.
Right.
And then at the end of that you get a couple million years of the same kinds of things, so maybe we're in an explosion.
That's a really good point. Right. I guess something drove that explosion to a point where it exploded, it happened for a couple 100,000 years and it stopped. Then all that just kind of stagnated, like for another couple million and something else happened. So that's a really good point, because if you look at humans, we've only been here for what, 200,000, something like that, if that. And we had a huge explosion that happened with us, in the past 100 years. I mean, we've grown technology-wise greater in the past 100 years than we did the past 2,000 prior to that. So
It's interesting. I have this idea that I sort of kick around in my brain about how the progress of progress is becoming more rapid. So like when you would see before, we would have these time periods where, like you're saying, it would last for this very long time before there was a development that kicked it into the next whatever, right? And it seems to me that was going by at a much slower pace tens of thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago, to where we're getting to, even though like something like this idea about like a George Washington wouldn't know the difference between 1945 and 2020, I think that there is like this, at least in when you look at a history book, we're breaking these things down by decades. When I was in school, it was like, you did by the decade. And I guess they would still do it that way now, but it seems like even that, if you go from tens of thousands to hundreds to decades, that things are rapidly changing.
Right.
And now they're rapidly changing faster than that, I feel like it, but I guess I don't know what it would feel like to be around 100 years ago or 5,000 years ago and to feel what progress felt like.
Right.
But
I mean, when did we start measuring time in decades? It was the 20th century, because I would say, probably even the 19th, because there's a distinct difference between 1850 and 1860, 1870, 1880, so forth, so on, and certainly a big difference between 1950 and 1960, and by the period of dress in particular and technology.
Sure.
But when you look at history prior to that, let's take Rome for instance. Rome, there was no technological advancements in Rome for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
They existed from, let's say, 500 BC to, if you look at the Eastern Roman Empire fell in 1400, there was really, honestly, no change other than gunpowder was the biggest technological advancement in that time. So
I'd say that's pretty significant.
Navigation.
It's navigation, but
Toilets.
toilets, but they still horse and buggy. There was no
Yeah.
there was no real hurdles or earth-shattering technological advancements in that time. Not until really the 1800s that we're really seeing the. Well, anyway, we were talking about decades and time, so
Sure.
I don't know how we measure that or what determines.
Well, the measurement of time is pretty slippery, elusive thing anyway,
Sure.
because you would go, if you even went to where we are beginning to measure time in a consistent way that we can communicate about, then you get to a point where, it's been at least, 80 to 100 years that we've said, it's been a little bit more than 100 years that we've said, there's no such thing as absolute time.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of screwed a few things up, didn't it?
that really did some stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
plus, we went from the Wright brothers to venturing out towards Mars,
Right.
landing on the moon.
I mean, in your time, Paul. I mean, you're not to date you, or even me for that matter. I mean, the things we do today would have been almost indescribable. When I was born in 1971.
Right.
The things we do, and the fact that information is literally at your fingertips.
Yes.
We can find out anything we want sitting here right now at this moment. We can find out something. In high school, if you ask me something about what's the average weight of an Asian elephant, I would have to go to the library and find out. But
Right.
we can go right to my phone and figure it out here right now. And that's amazing to me that we've come that far in that short period of time. So it'll be interesting to see where we go and how things move on the next few decades. A period of time. So.